When I did get into horses, I found an incredible space where I knew exactly who I was. My name is Patricia Kelly, and I'm the president and CEO, founder, president, and CEO of Ebony Horsewomen, Inc.
And when were you established?
1984. So what we do here is multifaceted. So we have youth programs, and a big chunk of what we do is called Equine Assisted Psychotherapy. The north end of Hartford was predominantly white, actually Jewish and Italian. Black people in the early years, we're talking 30s, 40s, 50s, lived in an area called the Bottom. The Bottom were the streets, Weston Street, what we know now is a very industrial area. Most of it was owned by a black woman. Bellevue Street, Worcester Street, Pavilion Street, Loomis Street, Warren Street, all of those streets, the back end of Main Street was called the Bottom, and that's where black people lived predominantly. And actually, if you went anywhere across the United States in those days, when you wanted to find a black community, you find the railroad tracks. And black communities were always built around the railroad tracks. And the reason for that was because if there were ever a civil uprising, the government could get troops in by railway. And that coined the term being born on the wrong side of the tracks. So my family lived in the Bottom. But in 1952, my family bought a home in North Hartford on Clark Street from a Jewish Holocaust survivor named Betsy Kaplan who hated prejudice. We were the second or third black family on the entire 2 blocks of Clark Street. Residents were not very happy about that at all. As a matter of fact, they took up a petition and demanded Mrs. Kaplan come and explain why she sold this house to my parents without notifying them. On that particular day, I was peeking from around the house, looking at this large group of white people in front of the house, waiting for Mrs. Kaplan to show up and explain herself. And I was praying to God that my mother would not come out. Mom, being a black lady, half Seminole Indian, had a temper that you wouldn't want to engage. As I stood on the side of the house looking, I got a beckoning from in back of me. And when I turned around, there was this very large white man, with a big stomach, a long white beard, and big cheeks. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I live next door to Santa Claus. And he said to me, little girl, come here. You don't need to hear that. And when I walked to his side of the property, which is a raggedy kind of picket fence separated the properties, he was standing next to a horse. And he said, little girl, do you like the horse? And I nodded yes. And he said, come. And I crawled through a broken part of the fence, and Mr. Fisher handed me a brush. And it was a wrap. It was me and horses from that point on. Mr. Fisher taught me how to ride, how to tack a horse, how to groom a horse, and he was my friend. Mr. Fisher's horse, which was a big draft horse, whose name was Horse, by the way, died about 3.5 years later. And that presumably ended my involvement with horses. When I graduated from Weaver High School, I wanted to go to college, But back then, if you didn't have the money to go, you just couldn't go. There were no scholarships like there are today. So I went to the Marine Corps. I joined the United States Marine Corps. And when I was in California, when I got out of boot camp and was transferred to California, they had facilities where I could ride. And I rode the whole time I was in California. When it was time for me to get out of the Corps, I came home and I did what all young girls my generation do. You get married, you have children, unfortunately you divorce. And during that period of time, it was a struggle as a single mom. Obviously to take care of the responsibilities, but to get back to who I am. Am I just mom? Am I mommy? And that's it. And I knew that Pat was screaming from the inside, don't forget me, don't forget me, don't forget me. And there was an organization in Hartford called the Ebony Horsewomen. And they had been around since, I'm going to say the late 50s, early 60s. And they were a really, really great group of men who loved to drink and ride. But every summer they would give show-deals for the kids on Albany Avenue. And everybody loved them, you know, everybody loved them. They were really a great group. But by the time I got out of the Corps, they were now phasing out. However, there were several, actually, there was maybe three. Art Johnson, Eddie Putney Merritt, and Garland Davis, who still had horses. And Eddie had a package store on Albany Avenue, and he had a farm in Glastonbury with horses. So I went to him and I said, I got to ride again. If I don't ride, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I got to ride again. And the interesting thing about Eddie is that I think Eddie had probably been married like 5 times and he hated women, which was great. Woo! You know, I'm going to be safe. So I got him to let me come out to ride, and I brought my youngest daughter with me. And in that space again, on a horse, Pat came back. And I had girlfriends who were in the same space that I was in. Had married, had children, divorced, trying not to have a nervous breakdown, some working 2, maybe 3 jobs, trying to make it happen. And this is the early 80s. So, you know, there were no malls really. We're not going to play tennis. We're not going to swim. What the heck could we do? But we had horses. There were horses in Hartford. And so I called them. I said, listen, you need to come out here. You got to do this. You keep talking about you're going to have a nervous break. You need to come out. They were like, girl, I ain't messing with them stinking horses. I just had my hair done. This is during the time when you would get dressed up to go to the grocery store. And I told them, you get your behind out here, I will come and whoop you and snatch your edges. You get out here. And they came. They came and they found the same incredible peace that I found. Mother's Day would come. I remember we were out riding and Rosa said, oh crap, it's Mother's Day. I was like, oh no. Well, we're supposed to have a big dinner. You know, it's Sunday, you're supposed to have a big dinner. So Rosa said, I got some chicken, and Cheryl said, I got some greens. So we all put all that stuff together, cooked a big dinner for the kids, all the kids, you know, we still in our riding clothes. But that's how much it meant to us. It meant like we were established again, that the mental health, like we can deal now. I can deal with the crap. I can deal because I know me now. I'm back. I'm level. I'm good. There were times when my kids were like in their teens, and I would have one of those days, and I'd get up in the middle of the night, and I just need to talk to my horse. And I'd go out to where we were boarding. There's cars outside, no women in there crying to them horses. I'm like, can I just have a minute, please? Why y'all in here? Can I just go home? And they're like, listen, I'm here for the same reason you here. So I knew that there was something that these horses were doing. Now just think about it. We're black women, we're urban women, and it's a horse that's grounding us again, that's giving us that confidence again. And clearly, because it's no joke riding a horse. It's not like television at all. You can get killed on a horse if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't understand the psychology between the prey and the predator, humans being the predator and this horse being the prey. If you don't understand that connection, how you can make that connection happen, the horse is not going to tolerate the human. So there was this capacity that we had to learn not to be the predator, but to be the leader without abuse, so that the horse could join up and we would be safe. And it was a magical connection, even to the point of we brought our children in to give them that opportunity to learn that discipline as they went over the hump of puberty, where everything can go awry, where their confidence can come into question, where they don't become followers but become leaders. And that horse did for them what it did for us. So we had a generational thing going. It wasn't until I was about, 36 years old, I had started Ebony Horsewomen, and my father was irate about it, just absolutely incredibly angry, and he wouldn't explain himself. And one day, where I had a horse, I bought a horse, obviously, because if I'm going to start an organization, I need livestock. I bought a horse, and I was riding this horse at a boarding facility in Bloomfield, and I saw my father pull up, and I was like, oh, Daddy's here. I'm going to show him what I can do. And he got out of the car. He walked up to this fence, and he said to me, you have the wrong bit in that horse's mouth, and he's going to hurt you. And he got back in his car, and he left. And I was absolutely incensed. I was the angriest I think I had ever been in my life. So when I finished at the boarding facility, I went to my parents' home, and I said to my mother, do you know what your husband said to me? He said, and I told her, and she said, well, you better listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. And then she told me the story. My father was born in 1899. His parents were slaves. As a matter of fact, my father was named after the plantation owner. His middle initial, he doesn't know or didn't know what it stood for. When they lived on this plantation, it was under an agreement of sharecropping, and that agreement entailed Daddy riding in what was called back then match races. Daddy had an affinity for horses. He was good at it. He understood horses well. And he had finished a race, and another race ensued, and he was asked to race again. But this time, the horse he was supposed to race on was a known idiot. And another older black guy said to him, son, don't ride that horse. That horse can hurt you. And an ultimatum was put to him. You either ride or your family get off my land. Daddy rode. And in the middle of the race, the horse pulled up, reared up, fell over backwards on him, and damn near killed him. And he never rode again, and he never talked about it. And when he saw me get into horses, he hated it, and he tried to do, I think, through my mom, everything that he could without exposing his history to get me to not get into horses. But I think it was in my blood like it was in his blood. The Moors of Africa invaded Italy. Some of the most highly trained horses in the world come out of Spain. The technique of riding, which came from the Moors of Africa. Let's start there. I can go back further, but most people have heard about the Moors. Let's go on to America. So America got the greatest amount of their horses from the Spanish-American War. Spain came over to beat our behinds and lost and left the horses in America on the prairie. Native Americans began to capture these horses. They were called from the Spanish word mastano, now called Mustang. And they trained those horses. And many tribes became a horse culture. During slavery, many enslaved individuals ran from plantations to tribes and found refuge, which is why there are many African Americans who have native blood. The first 13 winning jockeys at the Kentucky Derby were black men. And they ruled racing until Kentucky decided to license jockeys, and they would not license black men. The history was gone. Many of those black men went to Russia and became millionaires. The whole term cowboy, American icon, correct? John Wayne, Audie Murphy. The term cowboy came about from black men who herd cattle, who were not called cattlemen, cattle pokes, cattle hands. They were called boys. They herd cattle. Thus, cow boys. That's how the whole term came about. Hollywood comes along, turns it into an icon, throws black men, the image of black men, the work of black men, completely out. And not only that, the founding of many of these trails and towns in the pioneering days, founded by black men, wiped off history completely, when we were probably the foundation of the entire industry. And some people have to ask, are there any black people who ride horses? Are there any black equestrians? Are there any black jockeys? So when we first got started, Ebony Horsewomen, we knew it was something there that made us feel whole again, made us feel solid again, and gave us that confidence, but we didn't know the science. In the suburbs and rural areas, that had began to be a thing with science behind it. And so when in 2008, I think it was, or 7, when we began to understand that this benefit, there is science behind it. And there were organizations out there who were giving certifications in this training and in this science. And one of our parents, a Jewish lady who was a therapist, 30-year therapist at that time, had her child in our program and said, yes, let's find out what it is. And so we went across the country to get certified in equine assisted growth and learning. These programs that were certifying people, you lay $3,000 down, you fly in the first day, you get a packet of information, you play with the horses the second day, you take a little test the third day, and you're out of there. Listen, I know about horses, but this woman who's now certified as a therapist in this modality, she still don't know jack about horses. So I'm like, wait a minute. But it was the going concern. So we got that certification and we got another one, and then one day it was like, come on, wait a minute, wait. These are gatekeepers. They're not really teaching. It wasn't relevant to the Black experience or let's say the urban experience. And so I said, okay, to myself, this is not right. So I began to develop a training program where it was culturally competent, number one. And number two, you're in training for 6 weeks. Because if you're going to use this horse as a therapeutic tool, you got to know about how this horse thinks, how this horse speaks to us, so that it can be used. So the program that I developed is now Equine Assisted Psychotherapy, whereby you must, number one, be a licensed clinical therapist, already trained in psychotherapy. I'm adding the equine piece to it. And it's a 6-week course. It's a 6-week course where you learn how horses speak. What is the horse psychology? What is it that this horse reacts to? How does this horse uses nonverbal communication to speak to us? What is it about this horse that this horse makes us feel better? What is it? What is it exactly? Well, during the training, the participants learn some very critical information about horses. One, they learn that we are predators. And not only are we predators, but we're apex predators. Humans hunt and kill everything. Horses are prey animals. They get hunted by predators. And let me give you an example of how we're taught to be predators. How often have you heard when you're speaking to someone, you make eye contact? That's a predator response. So when I approach a horse, I drop my eyes. I don't come at him like predators do. Good morning, how are you? No. And that horse is like predator, and they start backing up. So horses have a built-in mechanism to read your energy. So in a therapeutic session, the client can come in, and with many kids that we have who are very savvy, can come in and give you all the answers that you want to hear. And the horse is like, they're lying. Now here's where cultural competency comes in. If I'm a white therapist and my client is a big Black guy who just got out of jail, and he's very animated, and that horse is over there, and I'm riding, the horse will not come in because the client is aggressive. When it doesn't necessarily have to be the client. It could be me, the therapist. Because as a white woman with this big Black man who's just gotten out of jail, it could be me clutching the pearls. Because horses know the difference between aggression and another emotion. Fear could be coming from the therapist. But if you got a Black woman there who knows her men, she be like, boy, if you don't sit your behind down, if you don't quiet down, stop yelling at me. I'm not scared of you. And the horse comes into the middle of that crap. Because I'm not scared of you, and I know you're not being aggressive. You're excited, but you're not being aggressive. That's why cultural competency in therapeutic sessions is critical. Because the diagnosis, particularly when you're using animal-assisted therapy, if you're reading that horse and you're saying that that horse is responding to the client, it could not be responding to the client, it could be responding to you. So equine-assisted psychotherapy is very interesting. It's very helpful but you got to be trained. Equine therapy is critically different from equine assisted psychotherapy. Equine therapy is any benefit you get from being around a horse. Ride a horse, brush a horse, walk a horse, you feel better. In psychotherapy, I'm now just using the horse as an extra diagnostic tool to help in the delivery and in the diagnosis. We are Medicaid providers, which means we treat people. We get people from DSS to come here every day and sit and just watch the horses, just look at them, and they feel better. Equine therapy. We have youth programs, which is critically, I think, more important today than has been ever before, because social media, these phones have taken over the minds of these kids. And they have become whatever social media tells them they are. And they come here, the most confused individuals I have seen in my life, this generation. And we've gone through at least, this is 4th, 5th generation. This is the most confused generation who needs more therapy than anybody else. So when they get here, they clean stalls, horses, barns. If they see me coming, they run the other way because I'm going to find something for them to do. Because it's therapeutic. And I take your phone at the door. Give me that. Your mama need to call you, she can call me. Give me that phone. And go get a broom. And go do that. We teach them how to ride because that horse is going to do another kind of teaching. Our young boys think that being a man is being harsh. And them horses are like, oh my God. 1,200 pounds at least, the smallest, 1,200 pounds. And them horses are like, son, you just don't know. And they get on these horses and the horses are not obeying any of the cues that we're teaching them to manage and to ride this horse. Horses like, I don't want to be wild with you. Get this kid off my back. I'm going to hurt him. Get this kid off my back. But over a period of time, because these boys want to ride, they want to ride. Then they learn that whatever's going on internally, you're going to have to lay that aside. You'll hear one of our instructors say, calm down. Take a deep breath. Stop thinking about whatever you're thinking about. And the minute they do that, the horse is like, shh. And now they're moving in sync with the horse. Over a period of time, these boys learn. It is an internal mechanism. And those horses actually become those boys' fathers. Now, they can't talk to them, but I can't tell you how many times I've passed a stall and have heard a boy in there talking to that horse. Man, you don't know. This is what happened in school today. Man, you don't know. He needs to get that out. And the horses, they can't talk, but they're there for you. And they know the difference between sadness and anger. Oftentimes, when these kids come in just broken, these high-spirited horses are like ponies. They're like, okay, dude, I'm with you today. It's going to be easy. And the other days when they're feeling good, the horses are like, come on, let's do this. Girls come in, hair, nails, body image. The next thing, the narrative has changed. How did you get him to go off on the correct lead? How did you sit to that trot? That's what we want. Take it away from the external and concentrate on the internal. Now they want to go to college. They want to have a business because it's no longer, it's now this. It's this. So horses. I had a girl tell me the other day about some mean girl talking about her color. She's too dark. She said, Miss Kelly, all I did was laugh at her. I know the time that would make me mad, I would fight. Now I just laugh at her. So that's what we do.